Hello, all you Purgatory dwellers out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Hey.
Data back from vacation.
Yep.
To the land down under.
Yep. It was the whole thing.
Nothing possibly went wrong.
Nope. Nothing whatsoever.
Right. No strikes.
Yeah, it's funny because they had to cancel Tasmania because there was a dock worker strike, and then the day we were supposed to arrive in Tasmania, the strike was resolved. And I was like, well, all right.
Everywhere you go, there's a strike.
It does seem that way, yeah.
At least there were no cars on fire or like mobs roaming the streets this time.
It's true. Not that I know of anyway. We didn't go there, so I guess, could have been a very serious strike. Who knows?
Yeah. You didn't get into a Poseidon adventure or anything like that, so
nope.
It's good. I just watched that movie the other day, so it's fresh on my mind.
The original or the remake?
Yeah, the original. Gene Hackman, Ernest Borgnine. Good stuff.
I don't think I've ever seen the original.
It's not bad. I think we saw the remake.
Yeah, we saw the remake
but
we snuck into it.
Yeah. Oh, did we?
Yeah,
it did not leave much of an impression on me.
We paid to see another movie that wasn't great. I think it was the Da Vinci Code. And then, right across the hall, the Poseidon Adventure was starting when we got out of the Da Vinci Code. So it was like, all right.
Yeah, why not? Shouldn't have put the two movies right next to each other, timed like that.
Yeah.
That's on the theater for letting that happen.
Yeah, obviously. It's all their fault. Really.
But I don't know. You going to do a podcast about that vacation on your other podcast or something?
I talked about it a little bit on the other show, but I don't need to get into it really. There's not all that much interesting stuff to mention, honestly.
Well, yeah. So if you want to hear about that, you can go check out the Sanderlanche podcast.
Yep.
Link in the description. Anyway, today we're going to recap and discuss Star Trek DS9 Season 5, Episode 14, In Purgatory's Shadow. Alternate title, Dr. Bashir, I presume.
Oh, very nice.
No. Oh, wait, no. Okay. No, we used it first, so it's okay. Just in case this is your first time watching Deep Space Nine, we will attempt to only discuss spoilers up through this episode, but proceed at your own risk. And obviously, all kinds of spoilers can come at you from every direction, so watch out. In Purgatory Shadow originally aired February 10th, 1997. It was written by Robert Hewitt Wolfe and Ira Stephen Bear in the reverse order.
Yep.
This time. And I've been listening, I don't know if you're aware of the Delta Flyers podcast.
No, I don't think so.
It is a podcast by the guys who play Tom Paris and Ensign Kim in Voyager.
Oh, good for them.
And they, did a rewatch of episode by episode rewatch of Voyager.
Very nice.
But they ran out of Voyager, and so now they've started doing Deep Space Nine. And they're a few episodes in. And they alternate between having Armin Shimmerman and Terry Farrell as a guest.
Nice.
But they have, I think we're still the best Deep Space Nine podcast out there right now. But they do have a lot of interesting stuff, back behind the scenes stuff. And one of the things I learned was that ampersand in the writer credits is very important.
Oh.
Because that what's it called when they make money off the episode?
The residuals? Yeah,
the residual is split evenly between all the ampersands. But if they write the word "and," then that fraction of the residual is divided again between the people that are divided by the word "and." Huh. So you want ampersands for maximum residual.
Wow.
Collection.
How weirdly specific.
Yeah, there's all kinds of interesting union rule, because I guess Armin Sherman's also big into union stuff.
Yeah, he was. It was him or his wife that was the president of the Screen Actors Guild. So.
Right.
At some point.
Yeah. An interesting thing I learned is that the director of the first episode of a series gets a residual for every episode.
Wow.
because they helped establish like the look and feel of the series or something. I don't know how much of a residual it is, but they do get one.
That's
But
good. I guess that's the big job then, is to get the first episode. Who directed the first episode on this show?
they said, and I don't even remember. I think it was someone who never even came back or isn't around anymore by season 5 anyway.
Okay, let's see. The Michael Piller wrote the teleplay, but okay, the director was David Carson, which I don't feel like we've seen much of that name.
But he's making something off of Deep Space Nine anyway.
Oh, he directed Star Trek Generations.
Oh, nice.
And oh my goodness, some of our other favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine. After Emissary, he directed Dax, Move Along Home, and The Alternate. And then he did some decent episodes of Next Gen, though. He did Yesterday's Enterprise and The Next Phase, both of which I am fans of. I am a fan of.
Right. But he did not direct this episode.
Nope.
That was done by Gabrielle Beaumont.
Yeah, I was reading up about her before we started recording, because her wiki entry on Memory Alpha is interesting. It's like, she's from England. She's born in Buckinghamshire, into a family going back 4 generations in show business.
Wow.
So her great uncle was noted thespian and theater manager Sir Gerard du Maurier.
Ooh.
So yeah, making her a cousin of famed writer Daphne du Maurier, neither of which I've ever heard of.
Daphne du Maurier sounds familiar, but
I looked her up and I was like, I don't recognize any of the stuff she's apparently famous for. But like, notable works include Jamaica Inn, Rebecca, Frenchman's Creek, My Cousin Rachel, The Scapegoat, and then a horror short story called The Birds. Not like Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds.
Okay. Oh.
So yeah, I don't know any of those. This great uncle, the famous guy, I don't really know any of the stuff that he's famous for either. But the one interesting thing that stuck out to me was that there was a brand of cigarettes called Du Maurier cigarettes, and while he was a regular smoker, and the brand is named after him as part of a paid endorsement deal, he did not actually smoke that brand himself. He just agreed to the endorsement deal because he had to pay some taxes, and this would give him the money to do that.
Nice. So he smoked, just not the cigarettes.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And if you have no more Gabrielle Beaumont facts.
Well, she directed... Okay, so yes, there is some interesting stuff about her. So she was on the stage as young as 7 in England, so she spent a long time in the show business in England, doing stuff on the stage, doing film editing, all that stuff. So then, what happens is, she comes to the U.S. to meet with Aaron Spelling, the television producer, because at that time he was looking for female directors because he was being pressured by the industry to employ more women in this capacity.
Sure.
So he was just like, I gotta find some women to direct. You want to direct? And so that got her like break into American television, where she became a pretty prolific TV director. Let's see, we got MASH, Dukes of Hazzard, Miami Vice, Law and Order, Beverly Hills 90210, and she wrote and directed the TV film Diana, a tribute to the People's Princess.
Huh.
After Diana died.
Sure.
And she was the first woman to direct on Star Trek, and directed 7 episodes of The Next Generation, including, let's see, any good ones in here? Face of the Enemy, I like. Lower Decks is pretty decent. Suddenly Human, Imaginary Friend, not the top of my list, but Booby Trap's okay. But she would go on to do 1 episode of Deep Space Nine and 1 episode of Voyager before moving on from Star Trek.
All right. So we will not be seeing any more Gabrielle Beaumont Deep Space Nine episodes.
I was about to say, no more of her unless we copy the Delta Flyer approach, but in reverse, and move on to Voyager after. And I haven't rewatched Voyager in a long time, honestly. It's not my favorite series.
Yeah, I'm not planning on doing it anytime soon, but you never know.
I do want to maybe check out this podcast, though, because that is one of my favorite podcast ideas, is like these stars of the show are going back. I listen to, not regularly, but semi-regularly, 2 other ones. The Boy Meets World one, where 3 of the like Boy Meets World stars watch the episodes, and then The Psychologists Are In, in which like two of the people from Psych rewatch and talk about Psych.
I'm guessing it's not like James Roday and Dule Hill.
No, it is Maggie Lawson and Timothy Omenson.
Oh, okay. Pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't listened to any of their Voyager stuff. They're like, I think they're up to episode 11 of Deep Space Nine now. So
so they really just started, yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad. I've been enjoying it. So this episode is in memory of Derek Garth.
Yeah, Derek Garth was a grip who was killed in a car accident while on his way to work on this very episode.
Oh.
Ira Bear commented that Garth was the most positive person on set.
Wow, that's pretty tragic and depressing.
Yeah.
And I believe Sirach Lofton is not in this episode.
He does not appear in this episode, no.
Okay.
The real question is, does Morn appear? We haven't been Morn watching much.
I know. That's a good point. I don't think we saw him in the episode. There was a scene in Quarks, but okay, so in this episode, with his abilities restored, Odo redecorates his quarters to its changeling-friendly configuration. Kira walks in carrying a Rubbermaid container full of chintzy modern sculptures and says she bets Odo is ready to get back to shapeshifting again. He is, although he is going to miss sleeping in a bed. But since he turns into goo when he falls asleep now, that's just not going to work out. To which I say, why don't you put like a little
rail,
thing around the bed just to hold in the... But he's like, nope. I'm back to being a changeling. Let's put these solid thoughts out of my mind.
I wonder what it's like. Like he says, when he goes to sleep, he reverts. So I guess that would count as his like hours of reversion for the day. But is reverting to his natural state, like, is it essentially the same as sleeping for him? Like, is it the same sort of sensation?
That's kind of a thing. I've been confused. I get the impression that he's asleep. Or that it during part of it he's asleep. Because remember, he used to like be in his bucket all the time.
Right.
And then I don't know if he needs to like be asleep or if he can just, spend 8 hours shape-shifting or something. But yeah, I've always kind of wondered about this. Embarrassingly, Kira finds a copy of a self-help romance book Odo had laying around. You see, Odo begins to explain, as a fully functioning human with genitals, I needed to... But Kira's just like, I'm going to cut you off right there.
More information than I needed.
Yeah, encourages Odo to not give up on romance. Whatever happened to that Bajoran cafe owner lady?
Yeah,
I guess it just didn't work out.
No, she turned into Grilka, right? Was that what it was? That was the same... Or no, they were going to get Grilka.
The lady who was going to play Grilka was going to play her, right?
That's what.
And then they got the lady to come in, but then they just didn't like her or something like that.
Yeah.
But then they get a call to come to Ops. Some kind of mysterious Cardassian code is coming through the wormhole. They have trouble breaking the encryption, but luckily there's an expert in Cardassian codes right here on Deep Space Nine. Cut to later in the Replomat. Zial number 3.
Yeah.
Sips on Raktajino while Dr. Bashir's mug sits untouched on the table.
The way they act so dramatic about it, it was like, get me Garrick. And I was like, were we supposed to think that he might be talking about someone else? Like, he's just like, oh man, expert on Cardassian codes, get me Rom.
Right.
Like,
I don't know. Could be. They could have gone for a twist. But then I like that the dramatic buildup is just immediately undercut with this casual, coffee scene. Where, so Garrick joins them and tells them that he was able to decode the message, and it was just a routine planetary survey or something.
Using the super secret code that no one recognized.
Right. Well, that's just the way the Cardassians are. Bashir is a little surprised to see Garrick so casual about the whole thing, given his previous obsession with discovering the fate of the lost Cardassian fleet from the Dias
cast. But that changeling was like, no, there are no survivors, so it's done now. Obviously,
right.
She's super trustworthy.
Yeah. As we learned in this episode, changelings never lie.
Yeah.
But yeah, Garrick is like, meh, I'm over that. Anyway, I'm going to head off to go do Taylor stuff. Yeah, that's it. Cut to Garrick sneaking through corridors into an airlock, then, hacking his way into a runabout, where he's met with Dr. Bashir with a phaser, who says, going somewhere? And he had that whole thing planned out. He was like, he's going to come into the runabout. I know exactly what runabout he's going to come into.
Yeah, somehow.
And I'm going to be sitting here facing this way. But when he comes in, I'm going to turn around and be like, going somewhere?
It's like, the chair actually doesn't usually swivel. I had to go get a chair that would swivel just for this dramatic moment.
Bashir says he saw right through Garrick's claims to not care about the lost fleet. And Garrick is like, wow, that's uncharacteristically smart for you, Dr. Bashir. Garrick reveals that the mystery signal was actually a distress call from Inabrantane.
What?
Oh my gosh, he lives after all, or something. Anyway, I assume you're coming with me into the Gamma Quadrant now that I've set up this fun-sounding adventure. Oh, I'm coming with you. To the captain's office, says Bashir. So in Sisko's office, Garrick pitches his plan and throws in that this could help find the crews of missing Federation ships as well. Which I feel like we've heard about these missing ships before, but I'm kind of fuzzy on when exactly these ships went missing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we do know at least that, the Bajoran colony that he mentions also. We knew about that one, and I guess we saw the Odyssey get blown up. So there could have been survivors from that, I guess.
Could be. I mean, it looked pretty blown up, but maybe.
Right, yeah.
I feel like we've had some throwaway line before about, it's like, oh, ships have been going missing in the Gamma Quadrant or something.
Yeah, maybe. That would make sense.
I don't know. Bashir, for some reason, is strongly opposed to the idea. But Sisko's like, yeah, sure, take a runabout, and I'll send someone with you. Oh, yay, we get that fun Garrick and Bashir adventure after all.
I like Garrick's like, oh, you just volunteered, Doc. And Bashir's very, very against it.
He does not want to find out about this signal. He's very opposed to it.
Usually he's all about going on these crazy
I know, he loves
adventures.
going on fun adventures with Garrick.
Yeah.
And then I just love the way Garrick is kind of speaking for the audience. It's like, oh, looks like another Garrick and Bashir adventure. But Sisko's like, oh no, I have an even better idea. Cut to Worf in his quarters on the Defiant, sharpening his MacLeod, or giving it a tan or something. I don't know what that... While Dax throws a fit. Worf is unmoved, so she's just like, okay, you can go, but I'm borrowing your Klingon operas while you're gone. Worf is clearly disturbed by this and says, but you're always losing crap. And Dax is like, yeah, so you better come back in one piece. Or who knows how many operas might get lost. I'll just be listening to them and putting them back in the wrong cases. Just leaving them on the table.
I do like this this random new character trait we've assigned to Jadzia of she does stuff.
Sure. Why not? But then they kiss and Dax wishes him a glorious death in battle. Or not, whatever.
Yeah, either way.
Then we get a similar scene on the upper level of Quarks between Garrick and Ziel. But this time it's a little bit more adult, as Garrick and Ziel have a much higher level of emotional maturity. Garrick promises that no matter what it takes, he will come back. But then out of nowhere, Dukat shows up and grabs Derek and gets ready to throw him over the rail.
Where actually, I went back and looked, Morn does appear down there as Garrick is getting dangled over.
Yeah, there's a big crowd gathering underneath.
Yeah.
And then this is something they talk about on the Delta Flyers, especially Armin Sherman talks about how there's actually 3 levels in Quarks. And he was always disappointed that more people didn't, nobody ever used the 3rd level. We never see level 3.
Huh, I wonder if it's just hard to shoot up there or what.
Yeah, maybe. But he always liked it when people used the 2nd level. So I was looking at this, I was like, oh, they're on the 2nd level today. But then it's kind of tied into the plot where Dukat's going to throw him over the rail. So
yep,
that kind of makes sense. But yeah, Quark and Ziel intervene and manage to cool down the situation.
I do like Garrick's classic, just not at all perturbed by Dukat grabbing him and threatening to throw him over. He's just Oh yeah, he needles him instead of kowtowing or whatever to this guy who's threatening him.
Right.
And then in the end, he's just like, "It seems public opinion is turning against you."
Yeah. He's like, you do have a pretty daughter.
It's like, wow, no self-preservation. Although given that we know the secret love story of the show was really Garrick and Bashir, I believe more than I probably did the first time I watched this, that he's being completely serious when he tells Zial, it's like, I hang out with you because it makes it better to be an outcast when I can talk to another Cardassian.
Right.
We don't actually have the relationship that you think that we have.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like first of all, I think this was a pretty explicit attempt by the writers to give Garrick the not gaze. But I've heard that in interviews and stuff before. But
yeah,
he handles it kind of like you'd expect. It's like, look, you don't really know what you're really interested in or whatever. But then Worf and Garrick set off on their mission after Worf promises Captain Sisko to kill Garrick at the first sign of betrayal.
And Sisko's like, "That's a joke, right?" And Worf's just like, "I don't know, man. What can I say?" I do love, when you think about it, I think the last time Worf and Garrick hung out were when they had that fight when Garrick was sabotaging the Defiant.
Oh, right, when Worf basically arrested him.
Yeah, so that makes this whole thing a little more interesting.
They had that, who won that fight? Garrick pulled out some surprise moves, but then I think Worf just, clocked him or whatever.
Yeah, I think Worf definitely came out on top.
Yeah. But you know what it's time for now? It's a downtime on the runabout scene.
Yep.
In this one, Garrick wants Worf to sponsor his application to Starfleet Academy. Garrick makes a big pitch about needing a chance at redemption, etc., etc. So Worf, possibly just to shut him up, says, "Okay, fine, I'll think about it." And then Garrick kind of takes it to the next level by being like, "Well, maybe I could skip straight to Commander and be your boss." And Worf is like, "Okay, you had your little joke." And then Garrick is like, "Mr. Worf, you're no fun at all." Which anyone who knows Worf would know he takes that as a great compliment.
Oh yeah, 100%. Garrick gets one of my favorite Garrick lines of the series there, where he's like, "Lying is a skill like any other, and if you want to maintain a level of excellence, you have to practice constantly."
True, I guess.
So, that explains it all. Also, Garrick gets to insult Earl Grey tea.
Yeah.
Take that, Picard.
Yep. Back on the station, Dukat tries to chew out Kira for letting Zial hang out with Garrick and fall in love with him. But Kira responds basically with, "Yeah, whatever, go away."
I do love, she's like, "Look, I kind of agree with you that Zial shouldn't really be hanging out with Garrick, but she's an adult and she can make her own decisions." And he tries to put it on her like, "You did this on purpose. You wanted this to happen just to screw with me. Everything is about me. All of the guys are doing me a favor." And she has that moment where she's like, whoa. You seem to be under some misapprehension here that I'm doing this for you. That was not,
right.
I care about you, not at all. But Zial, on the other hand.
Yeah, he announces that he considers this a betrayal and one that he won't forget. And then Kira's like, "Oh no."
I was like, "Oh, is that a threat? Because I'm not scared."
Yeah. Cardassian threats aren't worth what they used to be.
Apparently.
Maybe some foreshadowing. I don't know what's going to happen in upcoming episodes.
The note here says, "This episode represents the next stage in the evolution of the relationship between Kira and Dukat, where episodes such as the Maquis Part 2 and Civil Defense had served to soften the animosity and add a degree of ambiguity about how the relationship might develop. And that ambiguity later led to episodes like Indiscretion and Return to Grace, where they have to actually work together. This episode, however, represents the end of that brief alliance and the beginning of a renewed period of antipathy between them."
Sure. Over this kind of dumb issue, but whatever.
Well, I mean, over the fact that he's ridiculously self-centered in every way. So, yeah, but I guess minor spoiler, they do not fall in love and get married shortly after this.
Oh, so much for the Kira and Dukat shippers.
I mean, we still got 2 more seasons after this one, so it could come back around. But there's going to be at least a period of antipathy, according to that note.
Sure. So on the runabout, Garrick is complaining about the Earl Grey tea, as mentioned, when Worf brings the runabout to a stop, saying that the signal is inside Dominion space. Garrick says, how about we just go over to that nebula and take a little peek? Come on, doesn't honor dictate that we do it for those lost crews? And Worf says Garrick doesn't know what honor means, but Garrick counters, no, but you do. He's like, damn it, you got me.
I love it. It's just like, yeah, I mean, I don't know what it means, but I know how to use it to manipulate
Right.
you.
That just sounds like a thing that would be honorable, so.
Yeah, right? Random note about this nebula.
It looked familiar.
It is one of the background plates of the Mutara Nebula from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, except slightly recolored and flipped upside down.
But so yeah, they do go into this nebula. This quickly turns out to be a very bad idea, as there are like a gajillion Dominion ships in the nebula,
including our first look at the Jem'Hadar cruiser.
Oh yeah, they got the little, little ones, the little Jem'Hadar ships, but they got the really big ones too.
Yeah, I guess we just never run into one of those before.
Yeah.
I didn't realize.
As they flee the Jem'Hadar ships, Worf deduces that the Dominion must be about to attack the Alpha Quadrant and tries to get a warning message out. Then they are boarded by Jem'Hadar. Garrick tries to smooth talk his way out of the situation, but the Jem'Hadar are having none of it.
It's actually a really weird line delivery. I watched the episode twice, and both times I was like he seems to like be over, like he's saying it way louder than makes any sense for a guy standing 1 foot away from him. He's like, could you tell us the way to the wormhole? And I'm just like, what?
Maybe he's like pretending to be deaf or something so that they'll have sympathy on him. I just love that he never ever gives up, like trying to talk his way out. He's like, oh, are we in the nebula? What? On D-Space9, Kira is sure that the new O'Brien baby knows who she is, but Dax is skeptical. However, the Chief seems pleased. Chief's like, oh yeah, that's nice.
I think really, whether or not the Chief believes it, he's more of just like, there's no harm in letting her believe this. So.
And what's the baby's name? Apparently it's
Kiriyoshi.
Oh, like,
so, yeah, it's like they named after Kira a little bit.
So they didn't go with whatever the Bajoran word is that means swamp.
No, that was Sean.
So they took that into account and gave a little nod to Kira. That's nice.
Yeah, it's like that was another random fact about the director Gabrielle that I noticed was like her father is named Gabriel. And I was like, yeah, I guess they just wanted like that junior thing, so they're like, we'll go for Gabrielle.
But yeah, then they get the signal from Worf right as some listening stations in the Gamma Quadrant go down. And Sisko's like, oh no, that's not good. Meanwhile, on some asteroid somewhere deep in the Gamma Quadrant, Worf and Garrick are beamed down into some kind of prison, which they quickly learn is Internment Camp 371. No escape, no release, except death.
I do love that it's like, you guys can walk around wherever you want. I mean, there is a door out over there, but if you go out there, it's just vacuum.
Right.
And like, there's absolutely nowhere you can go. So, have at it.
Yeah, I like they're like, it's like, they make this big deal about, if you go out into the vacuum of space, you will die. And then it's just like, yeah, we've lived in space for a while. We kind of understand, like, the concept. The Defiant returns to DS9 after a recon mission. Sisko asks Kira what they found, and she says, trouble. Down on the promenade, Dukat meets Zial coming out of the temple and tells her that he's putting her on a transport back to Cardassia. He's heard from somewhere that a Dominion fleet is coming, and he wants her out of harm's way.
Well, because he gets involved in like the discussion. Was that after or before this? Where like
that was after this.
Oh, it was after this.
Well, maybe they told him about it before. Who knows? Back at Internment Camp 371, Worf and Garrick are assigned to Barracks 6. And Jem'Hadar guy warns them not to go out into the vacuum of space, as mentioned. The Jem'Hadar guy says he's been waiting for another Klingon, and leads them to some kind of fighting ring, where a Jem'Hadar is kicking the crap out of a Klingon. Worf recognizes him immediately. General Martok. Worf introduces himself after the fight, and Martok says, yes, I've heard of you. So even way back in Way of the Warrior, that was a changeling.
Yeah, this must be the first time that we've seen the real Martok, unless he's just like He's just gonna play it off and be like, "Oh man, we didn't get along that one time, but now we got to be friends, so maybe I'll pretend."
Oh yeah, that was a changeling that one time. Yeah, but yeah, now let's be friends and work together to get out of this prison camp.
But the reason things even kind of went south that first time was because like Worf embarrasses Martok's son in public, so to get the general's attention. So presumably that was really Martok's son that he humiliated or whatever. So I wonder if that comes up in conversation at any point where he's like, "Oh man, yeah, I messed up your son so bad it was hilarious." And Martok's just like, "Oh, that kid, he needs to be taken down a peg." No, I'm right there with you.
I was trying to remember from that episode how enthusiastic Martok was at that point for the invasion of Cardassia plan.
I don't know. It's
because it seemed like Gowron was the primary driver of that at that point.
But also when the fight like kind of starts between the Klingons and Deep Space Nine, like Martok's definitely the one pushing for. So
that's right. They had to kind of like talk Gowron down or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe, because when somebody's pushing for your idea, you don't have to step up and.
Exactly. Yeah, if you can convince someone else to take the lead, then yeah.
Martok immediately guesses who Garrick is and says, "He said you would come." He leads him to a bunk room where laying on a bed is Tane. And he's not in good shape. He's having heart problems. Which Garrick says some would say he doesn't have a heart. And then Tane begins chewing out Garrick for allowing himself to get captured, dooming them all. Which, like, I tried asking them for directions to the wormhole, but...
It's like, what did you expect him to do? He cannot, like, put a fleet together to come and save you. Like, he's a tailor.
It's like, it would have been nice if you sent a warning about the massive, like, fleet hiding, like, right there, but...
Yeah, apparently the message was one word, alive, so...
Right. Yeah, I guess he couldn't get a lot of information out. The senior staff at Deep Space Nine meet in the wardroom to brainstorm for the imminent Dominion attack. Also, Dukat is there. Starfleet is spread thin, and help is 2 days away. The only hope? Close the wormhole. So they say the wormhole... or help is 2 days away. But they have 36 hours to close the wormhole. So I guess there's just like a 12-hour, like, too short... or gap of time or something like that.
They have 26 hours in their days. I guess it's like 10 hours, but too short.
That's true. If they're using the Bajoran...
Yeah, I guess it depends. That's a good point. But we finally get a mention of the Borg attack, which is presumably, unless there's been another Borg attack, the one from First Contact.
Right. I guess it's possible that another one happened or something.
But apparently, we don't get a stardate in this episode. In the next episode, which happens right after this one, we get a stardate. And the stardate given in that episode is before the stardate from the movie Star Trek First Contact.
Oh my gosh.
So, the note says, when asked about this inconsistency, Ronald D. Moore commented, tongue-in-cheek, "I'm not at liberty to reveal the secret messages contained within the seemingly, quote, mistaken stardates, but rest assured that it is another brilliantly conceived and skillfully executed Star Trek moment, brought to you by the people who wrote Meridian."
Very cheeky. So yeah, luckily Professor Khan, the lady that Dax kissed that one time, has figured out how to seal their wormhole without hurting the Celestial Temple or the Prophets, but they will be cut off from Bajor. Oh, and obviously Worf and Garrick will be trapped in the Gamma Quadrant, unless they get back in the next 36 hours. Back on internment camp 371, Martok explains how Tane was able to get his signal out, but sadly only has days to live. Then a Romulan lady comes in and says, "They're releasing him from isolation." "Who?" says Worf. "A friend," says Martok.
Yeah, we gotta play like the pronoun game here so that the reveal is not ruined.
Yep.
It's like, oh, Dr. Bashir.
It's like, oh. Duh. Yeah, it's like, would Martok even know that... I guess he knows that Worf is on Deep Space Nine or something. He might actually not. I don't know.
Well, I mean, he says, like, if you're Worf, then you must be Garrick.
True.
So, like, I assume that, like, this has come up in discussions.
Yeah, and they do seem to be getting some kind of news from the outside world, because Martok is aware of what's going on, like, with the changeling that's wrecking shit up Or that was wrecking
I
shit
mean,
up.
Bashir could have brought that information.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
Bashir could have told.
Like,
him.
yeah, new prisoners
Like-
could be bringing in information all the time.
Yeah. I don't know about like I wonder what Bashir did to get put in isolation, since apparently you're allowed to do like whatever. Right?
Yeah.
But
He insulted one of the Jem'Hadar or something. I don't know. Oh, but yeah, it turns out it's Dr. Bashir.
yeah, spoiler. Sorry for the episode that we were already talking about.
So they all gather together. They do some quick blood tests and make sure that everybody's who they say they are. We're just sticking with these blood tests.
That's all we've got.
Well, except for that Breen. No blood.
Yep.
Bashir explains that he's been here over a month since a conference on Mizan 4, I believe a burn treatment conference. Same thing happened to Martok when he was hunting Saber Bear on Kang's Summit. Which sounds pretty badass all around.
I like that Bashir just says he went to bed one night and woke up in prison, and then Raul D. Moore comments, he must have been very tired and fallen asleep in his uniform.
Yep. Martok is upset that the changeling who replaced him has caused so much havoc, and Worf doesn't bother telling him that they killed that guy.
I mean, Bashir knows that.
True. Yeah, maybe he told him.
I would I imagine that like this has come up in discussion before now.
The way Martok says it, it sounds like he thinks that changeling is still out there. But
yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
But I mean, Worf should totally tell him that story too, because it's just like, and then we all gathered around and we like all lifted our guns at the same time and just shot him like 5 gazillion times, and he exploded. It was awesome.
It's like we figured out he wasn't really you because he was just like, there will be no honorable combat.
Right, he wasn't Klingon enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bashir wonders what his replacement is up to.
I mean, from what we've seen, his replacement is up to like helping deliver the O'Brien's baby and saving the sick changeling.
Right.
And
actually
like,
being kind of a good doctor.
Yeah. I mean, he did what they gave us the impression was super complicated work to like fix Sisko's brain that one time. He's been doctoring it up and not giving out as much personal like PHI to just whoever comes along asking.
And taking the patient's like consent and wishes into account before doing procedures.
Yeah.
He's maybe Bashir would be horrified to learn all of this. I don't know.
It's like, wait, he's not just giving out personal health information.
He doesn't go gossip about all the patients at Quark's after work.
So there's a note in here, and it does say like, you know, he's wearing the old style uniform, which means he had to have disappeared before the events of Rapture in season 5. And so, you know, he performed brain surgery on Sisko, delivered babies, blah, blah, blah. So of this storyline, Alexander Siddig said, apparently I'd been a changeling for the previous 3 or 4 shows before the fact was revealed in Purgatory's Shadow, but I didn't know it until the last minute, so obviously it had no impact on how I played him in these earlier episodes.
Nice. That's just how good that changeling is.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, Bashir, changeling, is bringing sandwiches to O'Brien and Dax while they work on the wormhole sealing beam, but he's doing it, like, creepily.
Yeah, it is a little weird.
He's like, if you need any more sandwiches, let me know. Zial lets her father know that she's not going back to Cardassia since she will never be accepted there. Dukat assures her cryptically that things are about to change on Cardassia. But she made a promise to stay and wait for Garrick, and she's going to keep it, which she did not. I went back and...
She did not. Yeah.
I made absolutely sure. I went back and watched that scene.
Yeah, my second watch through, I was paying attention to that. I'm like, no, he promises her that he'll come back. She doesn't say anything about being here, or didn't promise anything.
I was literally like, did she say that? And I went back and rewatched that other scene. And it was like, okay, fine, whatever, says Dukat. Stay here and be damned. Which is a little dramatic.
It was very dramatic. And it does lead to one of my favorite notes in the wiki for this episode, where it says, his line to Zial, stay here and be damned, parallels Kang's line to Jadzia, come and be damned, in Blood Oath. I don't know that seems like an intentional parallel in any way. I don't
think that's like a meaningful parallel.
No. It's just such a random note that I love it.
I just think that Star Trek DS9 writers like saying, and be damned. Back in the internment camp, Garrick vents his frustrations to Bashir at Tane's lack of gratitude for the rescue attempt. He's been a fool to succumb to the greatest weakness of all, sentiment. He warns Bashir to take that as a lesson, but Bashir says it's a lesson he'd rather not learn. Then Martok comes in and says, if there's any last words you want to say to Tane, now's the time. So Garak goes in with Dr. Bashir. Garak lies and tells the now blind Tane that they're alone. Garak assures Tane that all his enemies are dead, and he can die happy knowing that none of his enemies have outlived him. Whether that's true or not, who knows?
Man, yeah, I hope that's what I get on my deathbed.
Right.
Like, you can die happy knowing that all of your enemies have died first.
Yeah, that would. I would like to hear that on my deathbed. Tane makes Garak promise to escape and get his revenge on the Dominion. Garak said,
I do love the way that they formed that, where he's like, you have to promise me to escape. And you think it might be like some, like, oh, you get yourself out of here. But it's more like, Garak knows immediately. He's like, so I can get revenge for you? And he's like, well, I mean, yeah, you wouldn't deny a dying man his last request.
Yeah, I mean, Tane's like, yeah, fucking A, do it. Garak says he will make this promise if Tane asks it as a father. Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, 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 indeed.
Tane says the words all sons want to hear from their father on their deathbeds. I should have killed your mother before you were born. But then they share a sweet reminiscence of a day when Garak was 5, when Garak kept falling off his, quote, riding hound, and Tane was proud of him for never giving up.
The best kind of hound.
Right. But then Tane falls silent into death.
So, apparently the original screenplay for the episode has a much more straightforward thing where Tane just, like, admits that he's Garak's father, says he loves him, and then dies. And then Ira Stephen Bear is like, I don't like that. So he rewrote the scene to be what it is now.
Yeah, I think it's an improvement.
Also an interesting note. Let's see, where is this? So author Judy Class, whose novels include the Pocket or TOS novel, The City of Onlies? Onlies? Is that Onlies? I don't know. Anyway,
sure.
So she's the one who pitched the concept of doing an episode where Tane is Garak's father. She comments, I did not get an on-screen credit for it. It was the idea that Garak was the illegitimate son of Tane, and that was one more reason why he's a double or triple agent and a chronic liar. He has to spend his whole life pretending not to know that the man who's his patron and, quote, a friend of the family is really his father. Robert Hewitt Wolf was a gentleman and called me a year after I pitched the idea as a basis for an episode to tell me they were going to use that idea, but tucked into another episode, and they would pay me for it. And so Klaus received a check for $1,000 for that pitch.
Oh, all right. I mean, the way Garak's weird obsession with Tane has been built up, it's almost the only way to, like...
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a stretch in any way.
Yeah. But once Tane dies, the Klingons, who were clearly eavesdropping the whole time, come in, and Garak is like, okay, fuck this place, let's go.
So, there's another fun note about this scene, I guess, kind of, but it says that this episode had a lot of, like, long hours of shooting, and because of that, both J.G. Hertzler and Kathy DeBuono fell asleep at certain points, such as the scene where Tane dies.
Huh.
So, yeah, they were... I like this idea that Martok is just, like, napping outside during this scene.
Right.
But then I had to look up who Kathy DeBuono was, because, like, is that the Romulan lady, or who is this?
Yeah.
So, she is a person who appears regularly in Deep Space Nine, I think most often as Mpella, the Dabo girl. But also as random other people, and in this case, she is the Breen prisoner.
Well, that's easy, since all she had to do was lay there, apparently.
Yeah, just lay there, and you can't even tell if the eyes are open or closed. I would have fallen asleep too, probably.
Well, another fun fact I learned from listening to the Delta Flyers podcast is that they had extremely high turnover on the Dabo girls.
Oh, really?
Because they would never tell them about the skimpy costumes until after they were hired. And then they would be like, really put off by it and then quit, like, after one episode.
Yeah. I mean, that fits with how things would probably go in reality, as Quark tries to, like, sexually harass all of his Dabo girls. Like, I feel like the turnover rate would be high.
Yeah, so they were doing it for a reason. I don't know. But yeah, so on Deep Space Nine, the time has come to seal the wormhole. They fire the beam, but something goes wrong. Sparks fly out of a panel. O'Brien's diagnosis: sabotage. Suddenly the wormhole opens and a swarm of Jem'Hadar ships flies through like a bunch of space locusts. To be continued.
Bum bum bum.
The end of Deep Space Nine.
I mean, it could have been.
Yep.
And then they blew up Deep Space Nine, and that was the end of the show.
Yep.
So there's this note is fun because of how like weird. The producer's rationale for this 2-part episode was simple. As Ira Stephen Bear explains, it was the time of year when it seemed right to do a 2-parter. Basically the same spot where Past Tense Part 1 and 2 were in the 3rd season, and where Homefront and Paradise Lost were in the 4th season. And after doing Apocalypse Rising to open the season, we knew that we had to get the Changelings back in the show, get the Dominion back on the playing field.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, yeah, it's probably about the right time to do a 2-parter. We'll make it 2 parts. Why not? There's one more note.
Okay.
About the earliest origins of the story in this episode. They involved not the Dominion, but Michael Eddington. The plan was to do an episode inspired by the 1963 John Sturges film The Great Escape, with Eddington in the role of the escapee. The producers liked the idea because it would force the audience to empathize with Eddington, while the Federation was basically going to be portrayed as the bad guys. The reason it never got made is because, as Ira Stephen Bear explains, we weren't confident that the fans were really behind the character, so they changed their plans for how to use Eddington, and the idea of doing a Prison Break episode just kind of like hung out there for a while until it like came up and formed the basis of this 2-parter.
Well, I mean, you set him up as the villain. Like, why would we suddenly get behind him?
Yeah, it seemed like a weird idea to me, where it's like, let's make everyone like root for Eddington. Like, right. even before he like did his turn, I don't think they wrote him in a way that had us rooting for him in any way.
I mean, he was we got told he was friends with people, but
right, and that's the thing. If I feel like if they had lived up to his introduction, where he's like, "Well, I am here to make friends,"
right,
and like made him seem like put him in stuff, made him hanging out with the crew, being friends. Let us see some of that. Maybe he's going to the holodeck with O'Brien and Bashir or something. Just put him in the show. And maybe we would have been rooting for him more, and the turn would have like hit harder. But as it was, like we joked constantly about how he was like never in the show except for like this couple of episodes, and then it was like, oh, the guy who has been here all along and definitely was in all the episodes, he is a bad guy. Oh my gosh!
Right. They definitely could have planned that ahead better. Although it does sound like an interesting concept. The Eddington Great Escape. I don't know.
Yeah, it could have been.
But if that's your last thing, I guess we have to move on to the fact that apparently our Bashir watch these last several episodes has been totally pointless. Who have we been watching this whole time?
Yeah, I don't know what to say.
We have been counting some days, so
yeah, and I'm gonna have to jump because it's the next episode where he mentions like a number of days, I think. So hold on one second.
He said over a month in this episode.
He says over a month here, and apparently there's a future episode that comes up where he says it's like it was 5 weeks or something. But I think there is a note. So Ronald D. Moore has officially said it was before Rapture that he gets replaced, which is coincidentally when we started our Bashir watch. Who knew?
Oh my gosh!
But someone else has it's a big debate among the fandom. So he says 5 weeks or whatever. We have this person puts that at 37 days. Says, okay, let's call it 37 days. Before the end of the next episode by Inferno's Light. And says that, but there's no way that all these episodes in between could have taken place in less than 37 days. Although I think the way that we counted them out, it totally could have. We ended up at, let me bring up my notes on that because I've been keeping the notes on Bashir Watch. So we ended up somewhere around, let's see, Rapture at 5 to 6 days, at least 3 days for the Darkness and the Light, 7, 8, 9 days for the Begotten, for the Uniform, maybe 5 days, definitely less than 2 weeks. So let's say 6 plus 3 is 9, plus 9 is 18, plus at least 5. So we have a 24 day minimum. So the way we counted it out, it does seem like it could have happened. But this person says it's Star Trek tie-in author Christopher L. Bennett is quoted in here saying like it's not possible. According to the dialogue, darkness is at least that's the darkness and the light.
Sure.
Is at least 3 weeks before the Begotten, which maybe there's something in there about like, Kira, it's Kira's, because the Begotten is where Kira delivers. So maybe like relating to the pregnancy, maybe it establishes there's 3 weeks between those.
Yeah,
and
maybe we missed that.
This person also says that the Begotten itself covers nearly 2 weeks. So that's at least 33 days right there. And we definitely, in the Begotten, we had trouble establishing like exactly how many days, and like because it seems to be over some period of time that Odo is doing these experiments.
Yeah.
So yeah, he says that's at least 33 days there. The events of For the Uniform and the two-parter cover about a week each. We know there's several days in For the Uniform. We said that 5 days, between 5 days and 2 weeks. So I guess that does seem close to 2 weeks. I mean, close to a week. That would be about with our guess on that. So, it says, even if we assume 26-hour Bajoran days, 37 of those is only 40 Earth days, so that doesn't help. So Bashir must have been abducted after the uniform change. There's simply no other possibility, and the fact that he's in his old uniform is a paradox.
Well, maybe he kept his old uniform as pajamas.
Oh, that fixes both of those problems. He's like, oh, the old one's just so comfy.
Right. And we've even talked many times, or they have on the show, about how comfortable these uniforms are designed to be. So, and they're even like called pajamas a bunch.
It does, yeah, that's true.
So that would solve all of our nitpicks.
Okay, so yeah, that's going to be our official stance, is that although really, I mean, Ronald D. Moore specifically says it was before Rapture when the uniform change happened. So, I mean, I guess if we ignore that, we can say that it was sometime after Rapture, 37 days before this, but he was just in his old uniform pajamas.
So, So, either we are better at counting days than this person, or the pajamas theory.
It could be both.
Yeah, true. I would love to see just like another scene later in the series where Dr. Bashir is just wearing his old uniform to bed. I have a feeling we're not going to get it, though.
Like, somebody's like, wait, why are you in that old uniform? It's like, oh, I was just on my way to bed.
Yeah. It's like, you don't use the old one as pajamas? It's so comfortable. Okay, so I think we can move on to review.
Yeah, okay.
How would you review... Oh my god. In Purgatory's Shadow.
I mean, partly it's the same problem we always have with the two-parter, is
Yep.
It's just the first half of the two-parter. So take that into account. But I think that it's pretty well done. I think that even before you find out about the twist to Bashir, it's like the way they play the message. And then, like you pointed out, the way they immediately undercut the drama by having Garrick just be like, "Oh yeah, it was something silly," and then you get the moment of Bashir like one-upping him, and the Garrick Zial stuff I don't particularly like. It feels a little bit forced to me, but it does lead to a bit I do like, which is the Dukat Garrick stuff, like giving Dukat a reason to like go over the top at Garrick, and also to then like burn bridges with Kira, even though I don't know that the bridges were ever really there except in his head. But so it leads to some good Dukat stuff. I don't buy the two of them, the Zial Garrick thing.
Sure.
I like the Garrick and Worf stuff. Really, Garrick is almost always great, right? We've established this before too. Like wherever you put Garrick, he almost always is going to be fun.
Right.
And then the twist, this is, in my memory, one of the biggest and most dramatic twists that Star Trek has ever done, where it's like, holy crap, Bashir isn't Bashir? And then, and I think they did it really well. I feel like it
Yeah.
might have been better if they had dropped hints intentionally earlier in the show, where it, at least from Alexander Siddig's perspective, he's like, "Oh yeah, I had no idea until like this episode." So I feel like you could have played the long game and done a better job of that and made it hit even harder, because then on rewatch it's like, oh my gosh, there's that hint that I missed, right?
Right, yeah.
But
So,
that honestly is a nitpick. I think that overall, really, really solid episode. Really, all the pieces were well done, I would say, and so this is gonna be pretty tops for me. We even bring Martok back, but like a much more likable Martok, which is nice, because J.T. Hertzler does a great job with it. So, and we're setting up for to have some really interesting stuff in the second half of the two-parter, where they will continue to twist us around a little bit. So I feel like overall this two-parter is really well written. So I think I'm gonna go all the way. I think I'm gonna give it a captain.
all right. Yeah, I mean, I guess they just keep dropping the ball on these setups, like Michael Eddington, Bashir Changeling. They apparently had the foresight to set up the Odo sick virus or whatever.
Yep.
But then they accidentally edited it out. So yeah. But yeah, I kind of feel the same way. It's like it's definitely got the part 1 of 2 problem. But you know, so for a while I was like, I mean, commander or captain, because it just has, like we're back in Dominion, we're back in Changeling stories. We got Garrick and Tane. I mean, we got all the stuff we love, and I'm just kind of like, what more can you expect from a Deep Space Nine episode?
Yeah,
even one that's at part 1. So I will also go ahead and give it the old captain. Pretty good one.
Yeah.
And I thought the like that scene that you said was rewritten, the Tane deathbed scene. I liked it.
I think I agree with Ira Stephen Bear for once, that it definitely it serves both the Tane and Garrick characters better the way it was written,
right,
than to have him be like, okay, yeah, you're my son, I love you, die.
Yeah, it feels more true to those characters.
For sure.
Like, yeah. So pretty good. And title review?
Okay, title review. This one is definitely memorable.
Definitely.
Yeah, you say In Purgatory Shadow, and I remember that that's a Deep Space Nine episode. I don't know that I could necessarily tell you it was this episode, though I do feel that, like, once you know what happens in the two-parter as a whole, and as the series continues, I think that that's actually a pretty solid title that's relevant, like, because we're right in the shadow of something big that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, like, that prison for all those people is like purgatory.
That's true too. That's fair. That's a good point. And so, yeah, I feel like it's memorable. I feel like it's relevant, and I'd say it's clever enough. I think on all of our criteria, it rates pretty highly. Yeah.
I like it. Gets a little bit too close to the Apocalypse Rising goofiness.
Yeah,
but I'm willing to let him have it. It's a pretty good title. I think it works.
Yeah, I agree that it feels like on the cusp to me of almost too far into like into just being like too out there to, but no, I think that we've pointed out ways that it applies where it's not quite that that out of there.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, I think it's a pretty high on the I think personally it's pretty high on the memorability scale of episode titles. Yeah. So as opposed to it's funny, I was trying to remember when I was referencing back to the Die is Cast, and I can always remember Improbable Cause and what that episode is. But for some reason the Die is Cast, that title I have trouble remembering, and I don't know why.
That's another one of those, I think, that it's just like there's a lot of episodes that you think about and be like, that one could be called The Die is Cast.
True. So it's kind of weird, like in the moment saying how memorable something is versus how memorable it is, like, a few months later. But yeah, anyway. I guess we'll call it there. We thank you for joining us today. What's a good, if you like this episode, what's a good one to review? Like the Die is Cast. If you liked our review of this one, go check out our reviews of Improbable Cause and the Die is Cast.
Yeah.
Pretty good. We'll pair pretty well. Yeah, you can find those and all our past episodes on wherever you listen to this, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. If you go to YouTube, you can go listen to my all the movies I watched so far this year video also. But my name is Fletcher. About to say goodbye is Data.
See ya.
We look forward to seeing you for the next discussion, but remember, don't stand between me and the Purgatory.
Okay.